The Super Cuda that we built 15 years ago, I can't believe how fast time flies, is back for a little bit of service work. But what it did is it brought back memories of why we even built this car in the first place. It started out a bunch of us having a pizza upstairs, and we're talking about the prices of Enzos, how ridiculous Enzo prices were. And at that time, believe it or not, if you listen carefully, it was $1.2 million. Today, it's $5 million. So even back then I said, listen, for half of the money, I could build a car faster than the Enzo. We happened to have a Cuda convertible up there at the time, you know, a Hemi car, and I said, I could make that car go faster than Enzo for half the money. So that was the impetus to the beginning of the Super Cuda. It was a 1,500 horsepower, twin turbo, V10, you know, independent suspension front and back. We built the car from scratch. It was faster than the Enzo, not in the top speed because I chickened out, but up to the speed where I lifted, it was much faster. And you know, it was kind of cool looking at the car again, what we did. Some of the stuff is a little bit dated now, but still a really good looking car. Obviously still super fast. What's interesting too is the price discrepancy. You know, this car was at the time maybe $500,000 or $600,000 to build. The Enzo was $1.2 million. It was half the price. Today, the Enzo is $5 million. Old hot rods haven't really gone up in value. So at the end of the day, I would say the Enzo was a little better investment. Every once in a while, a couple of buddies get together and it ends up being a bench racing session. Everybody's got an opinion on what car's better, what car's faster. Well, one of my buddies throws down the gauntlet. So what do you think's the best car out there?
I still think the Enzo's the best car.
Why?
Just the technology in that car,
But it's $1.2 million.
It is what it is. Look at it, it's beautiful, it's Italian.
For $1.2 million, for half that money, I can make that 70 Cuda go as fast as the Enzo.
This I gotta see it. I gotta see it.
We'll build one. You find the guy with the Enzo, and we'll come out and we'll see who's worse.
We got the guy, you bring the car.
I accepted the challenge, and Legendary was about to tackle the most demanding build we'd ever faced. The Super Cuda, as it was now being called, had to be ready for SEMA in November, and I also wanted to have the challenge with the Enzo all in before the end of the year. It really didn't matter what we started with, since 90% of the original car would be discarded, but it was going to be the drivetrain that was going to be the important part to propel our Super Cuda to over 200 miles an hour. Well, when the Viper first came out in 1992, many considered the V10 nothing more than a glorified truck motor. Well, by the third generation, the Viper engine had proven itself more than reliable. Well, when a slightly damaged 05 Viper landed on our doorstep, it made for the perfect donor car. The all-aluminum motor, heads, transmission made for a lightweight package for our Super Cuda. Well, the rear end in a Viper is more than adequate for the 500 foot-pounds of torque that the stock Viper puts out. Problem is, in our Super Cuda, we're going to be making closer to 800 foot-pounds of torque with the twin turbo. Although the center section itself is more than adequate, the internals will need to be converted to the beefier Quaife unit. With today's modern supercars evolving with more and more horsepower, take the MC12 today, the Enzo, and of course the Bugatti Veyron, making 1,000 horsepower with 4 turbo units in a V16. In order for the Super Cuda to compete with any one of these supercars, we're really going to have to up our game. I had the opportunity to drive an FXX at Mosport, and I got a real good idea. I mean, I think the comment I made was like being shot out of a cannon up the back straight. And the car just pulls like crazy. It stops, it turns, it does everything just unbelievably well. So we'd really raised the bar to a level that it was going to be tough to hit. And the chassis is definitely a tube chassis, but what we didn't have is a cage that was really, you know, triangulated in 100 different directions. We had a basic sort of 8-point cage. The bottom part of the chassis was really strong.
Well, there was 2 big concerns doing the chassis. First, we wanted full access. We didn't want to incorporate sidebars that would definitely give us the kind of strength that we needed in the chassis, so we had to take a completely different approach. And doing the backbone design and using the motor as a structural member gave us the torsional strength that we needed in the car. The backbone design is something that we've used on previous cars, like in a pro modified drag car. You use the backbone to try and stiffen the chassis.
but because it had to be a street car again, where we didn't have bars in front of the doors and we wanted fairly easy to get in and out of. The only real thing is we had, like I said, an 8-point cage, so we had rollover protection. And we didn't really need side impact protection. It wasn't like somebody was going to run inside of us as we were parked, but it was a lot less cage than we're used to in a race car. I think if you screw up at 200+ miles an hour, it's going to be a mess anyway, so.
We fabricated the upper and lower control arms using chromoly tubing, which was fully adjustable now for camber and caster. The long control arms also allowed for a really nice camber curve. As far as the rear end suspension, again, we used a custom A-arm that we'd built in-house. We used a quafe rear end to handle all of the horsepower. As far as springs and shocks went, we went to Multimatic for their expertise.
I think it's important to explain that really the damper is kind of a secondary device on the car. The primary suspension device is the spring. The way I can prove that to you is if you take the spring off of a car, it'll just fall to the ground. The spring is what keeps it up off the ground. The damper is a secondary device. You can remove it from the car won't fall to the ground, but it won't be controlled in any way. This damper, what it does is control the motion of the vehicle on its spring. And it does that really by moving oil around a piston. This is exactly the same kind of shock that we put on the Super Cuda. It's a two-way adjustable damper, and it's been matched exactly for that car. What the four-post rig does is we can put the car on the rig, and we can actually shake it vertically up and down, or with a pitch motion, or with a roll motion, or with a warp motion, and we can match the springs to the car and match the damper to those springs.
Because the Super Cuda had to go around corners as well as it went in a straight line, we opted for Pirelli P0 courses, 315 30 ZR18s up front and 345 35 ZR19s in the rear. As far as braking went, we went with a 14-inch rotor and a 6-piston caliper. We knew if we were going to make this car work, we needed some sort of downforce, but I didn't want to have big goofy wings. I still wanted it to look like a 70 Cuda. We'd already spent months building the chassis for the Super Cuda, and the challenge of beating the Enzo seemed more daunting than ever. We realized at these speeds we would definitely need some aero, so we borrowed a splitter and diffuser commonly used on race cars. The splitter is designed to create downforce in the front of the car. The airflow is brought to a stop by the air dam, causing an area of high pressure. The splitter redirects the air away from the dead zone, producing low pressure. Combine the effects and now we have downforce. The benefit of more downforce in the front of the car: one, the car doesn't want to take off. Secondly, it helps with understeer when entering corners at high speeds. In the rear, we used a carbon fiber diffuser. The diffuser reduces the velocity of air when it's trapped between the ground and the car. The difference between the two and the relatively flat underside of the car creates a vacuum effect which sucks the car to the ground, creating downforce. Hence, the faster we go, the more stable the car is in the back. As with any race car or any car trying to achieve over 200 miles an hour, weight comes into play. We decided that we would do a lot of pieces in carbon fiber. We decided to use carbon fiber in molding the hood, the bumpers, the splitter, the diffuser, the floor pans, the sills. Anything we could make in carbon fiber would help reduce weight.
We laminate this material, which is a carbon fiber pre-preg. It's, in this case, a carbon fiber weave, just like the jacket or shirt you're wearing. It's woven in the same way, just from carbon fiber, with about a 38–40% epoxy content actually rolled into it. This gets cut out into shapes on a 2-axis kit cutter. So we make all the shapes automatically cut out, automatically nested for optimal material. And we get those shapes and then we laminate those into those single-sided tools. Once we have 2, 3, or 4 laminates laid in, and it's very dependent on the directional. This is a directional, what they call an anisotropic material. It's in different directions. We have to lay it in the right orientation. We then, once that's laid in, we put in something called a breather layer, that white material, which allows, once we pull a vacuum, that allows us to pull an even vacuum all the way through it. And then once that's on, that breather layer, we then put the plastic bag on, and it has to be sealed off all the way around, because once we have the bag on and it's sealed, we pull a vacuum on that, and that bag is what pulls all the carbon fiber material down hard onto the tool. Now that's pulling it down with just 1 atmosphere of vacuum. To get a really consolidated structural part, we then put it in the autoclave where we push the pressures up to, say, 100 psi and 250 degrees. And that's what ultimately pushes it all together and cures the resin.
The reason we ended up going with the the twin turbo Viper motor is we knew that it was a proven package. We knew we could make 1,000 to 1,500 horsepower. It's out there, guys are doing it. Where if you're trying to make 1,000 to 1,500 horsepower on a naturally aspirated Hemi or a 440, I mean, you have to have big compression. It doesn't become streetable, and the whole purpose of this thing was to make sure that the car, first off, was a streetable car that you could put pump fuel in and go drive it every day if you wanted.
As large as the engine bay looks on a Cuda, it really created problems with the V10 motor. And we didn't really want to clutter the top side of the motor with the turbos, so we mounted them down low, down in the footwells, just in front of the firewall. It complicated the plumbing on one hand, but it really simplified it in others.
A turbocharger is basically broken down into 3 units. You have the compressor, the center section, and the exhaust turbine. The compressor and the exhaust turbine are linked through a shaft. The exhaust flow spins the exhaust turbine, linked through the shaft turns the compressor. As the compressor spins, it sucks in air through the intake, compresses the air, and forces more air into the engine. More air into the engine allows for more fuel to be pushed in as well, creating more horsepower. We used a stock V10 Viper block but de-stroked it to 511 cubic inches. We're running 9-to-1 forged pistons, the intake's using a polished stock throttle body, and we're using RCI 75-pound injectors. Everything's controlled through AEM box. Because we're using a twin turbo setup, we obviously needed to deliver more fuel as well.
Not sure the actual consumption of fuel per hour, but we designed the system to run on 2 pumps with regular boost, and when we went to full boost, you bring in the other 2 pumps, so we'd have 4 pumps running the system.
We've had a long association with BASF and Glazert. We've used them for over 20 years. Chip Foose also agrees they're the best product on the market right now. So BASF actually sent up Chip to work with us to come up with a paint scheme for the Super Cuda.
The original color scheme obviously was with the blacked out top,
right,
rear spoiler, and taillight panel.
But the AAR Cuda had all the lines.
Right.
Are you thinking you want to keep those?
Not down the side of the car.
We'd basically settled on that AAR look, but Chip came up with a couple of options. From metal work until we were ready to paint the car was over 1,000 hours. The car had to be dye straight, and the primer had to be sanded with 600 grit wet. Because the paint was a 2-stage base, we painted the entire car with a silver base and then laid over the green metallic. After that, 5 coats of clear were sprayed, and of course all of the blacked out AAR Cuda trim was done in a dark charcoal, same as the chassis. After all the painting is done, there's another 100 hours in just sanding and polishing to give it that deep, deep look. The weather was closing in, so we decided to take the car to Toronto Motorsport Park. They have a quarter-mile strip there, but we had real trouble getting the car to hook up at all. The few passes we were able to even marginally hook up, we were running 10s at 128 miles an hour. The car was capable of far more, we just could not get the car to hook up.
As soon as you got into the boost, what would happen is you couldn't modulate the throttle enough like a naturally aspirated car. It'd feel like, okay, it's pulling good, and then all of a sudden it makes some big power when you get into the boost, and it just break the tires loose. We had a couple times 3rd gear, 4th gear, and it would just start spinning the tires.
We also had the chance to take it around the road course so we could see how the car would handle around corners at speed. The The Cuda was loaded up on our transporter along with Mike Luley's Ferrari. Mike Luley's a true car guy that just couldn't resist the opportunity.
I got a phone call saying, Mike, how would you like to go out on a racetrack on the proving grounds, 5-mile oval, and see how fast you can take the car? So I thought about it for maybe 5 seconds, and I said, sure. You get the car there, and I'll be there.
We left for the Chelsea Proving Grounds in the middle of the night, and on the way it actually snowed. The crew sank into depression, but as we neared the border of Michigan, the clouds parted, we arrived to a clean, dry, but cold track.
When we showed up at the track, it was kind of scary. When we first got there, it was snowing. So I thought trying to do 200 miles an hour in the snow is going to be a little interesting.
The Chelsea Proving Grounds are on 4,000 acres. It's a 4.73-mile oval with similar banking found at Daytona. Before Chrysler would let us out on the big oval, they wanted to make sure that the Super Cuda was really a Super Cuda. We spent an hour in the Chrysler garages with their engineers to make sure that they were confident with the Legendary Motorcar build. They all agreed this wasn't just another pretty face. One of Chrysler's engineers, who's also a test driver, put the Super Cuda through various handling tests. Then it was my turn to do the same. Considering the car wasn't running a week ago, any seat time before a 200-mile-an-hour attempt was much appreciated. Mike Luley, a Ferrari Challenge champion who is one of those rare Enzo owner who really uses his cars, was also allowed out on the asphalt lake to join in the fun. Both Mike and I were able to find the limits of our cars, and then we both exceeded them. Matter of fact, I broke a rear sway bar as the Super Cuda has the giant 345 19-inch Pirellis on the back. Even on cold asphalt, there's still a fair bit of bite. Now it was time to go to the oval. We were all concerned about the track temps. On the way up that morning, it had actually snowed. To say track temps were not optimal was an understatement, so we thought we'd ease into it, taking some easy laps at first. Again, we got a lesson from the test drivers on oval etiquette. Always pass on the outside. Now it was time to make a couple preliminary runs. Mike and I stayed together through the oval, but coming onto the straightaway, it was time to put the hammer down. With the massive torque of the 522-inch twin-turbo Super Cuda, it easily pulled away from the Enzo. It just pulled like a freight train right off the corner, right up to almost 190 miles an hour. Then I heard this sheer whistle in a snap. I pulled in to see what had happened. We finally made it to the Chelsea Proving Grounds with the Super Cuda to run against the Enzo. We've had a couple of teething problems. On the Black Lake, we actually broke a sway bar end link, and then we went out onto the big oval, and it hasn't exactly been smooth either. We've had a problem. Hopefully it's nothing serious. The windshield molding on the right side had blown clear off the car, narrowly missing the Enzo. On the left side, the molding took a little more work to remove.
We hit 303 kilometers an hour. It's about 187, 188 miles an hour. And there was more room to go. But that car moves.
I think we can still fix it.
Yeah. Typical Peter.
Okay, let's go out again.
Now it was time for our second run. I was really glad now that we'd blocked off the hood scoop and the grille to try and keep the air out from the engine bay. The hood, even so, lifted almost 3 inches of the center as we got up to speed. Little wheel spin in second gear. Third gear, I'm getting some traction. Fourth gear, we're building some boost. Fifth gear, we're building boost. I can feel the hood lifting. The sound of the next pass was like a jet coming off the corners down the straightaway. The Super Cuda was blowing a giant hole through the air at over 200 miles an hour.
Just gonna let the turbos cool down a bit. I'm not sure how fast we went that time.
We hit 324.
324
kilometers an hour. But there's still a little bit left.
You know what?
There was a little bit left, so I think...
This has better aero than mine. You go out again.
Mike really thought he could go faster. Well, after seeing him do a lap again at speed, I couldn't help myself and I came out to play. Mike hit 218 miles an hour in the Enzo for a new track record. The Super Cuda on the last pass ran 208 miles an hour. It wasn't because it was running out of horsepower, it was definitely running out of aero, and I was running out of cojones.
We had enough horsepower to go as fast as we wanted. It was just a matter of how stable the car was at the speeds we want it to go. You know, if I had stayed in it longer, the car would have done 220 miles an hour. I don't think the car would have had a problem going 230 or 40 miles an hour. The track was long enough, there was enough horsepower there. It was just a matter of, does the car start doing stupid things, start lifting where it's not drivable anymore? Or
I remember a couple years ago at Road America, there was a GT1 Porsche, and you could see the car get light and then the air gets underneath it and the car just does a backflip.
It wasn't a function of the aerodynamics slowed down the car, it just made it a lot less stable than I would have liked it to have been.
The question is, if it had better aerodynamics, can it beat the Enzo? And the answer for me is categorically no. It's still not going to do it.
I know Mike thinks that the Cuda could not beat the Enzo, but quite frankly, I mean, we took a car out of the box, other than maybe a half hour at a track to shake it down, and ran within 10 miles an hour of his speed. And the only reason that we didn't go any faster is because I sucked out.
In the end, the car definitely looked like a Cuda, and that's the one thing that really impressed the Chrysler engineers when we went to the proving grounds. They said, that's a Cuda, we love that. And that was the whole key to the project. We got the look and we got the performance.
I always think that we can do more, or we can engineer it as well as anybody else. And that's always been our philosophy here. So no, I really believe that we could get it done, and we did.
If you want to see more car content like this, make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel, and don't forget to visit our website to explore our curated inventory of luxury, classic, and investment grade cars.